Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and catch a falling star and put it in your pocket, never let it go away. I am discussing The Princess Diaries, the 2001 film, based, of course, on the young adult novel series by Meg Cabot. I can tell you, in middle school, my favorite author was Meg Cabot. I read most of the Princess Diaries books. I read other books by Meg Cabot, including All American Girl, Teen Idol, and I'm looking through the books I couldn't remember off the top of my head. Oh my goodness, there were other ones I read too, but she was my favorite author when I was in middle school. I read a lot of her books, and Boy Meets Girl. I'm looking through the books. I'm like, which ones did I read? Ready or Not, I read that one. And this is a really great adaptation of The Princess Diaries. And for some reason, I don't necessarily remember seeing this movie in theaters. I do remember seeing the sequel, though, the whatever it was called, Princess Diaries Royal Engagement. And there have been rumors for years about a possible third Princess Diaries film. Here's hoping someday. I mean, I think they should. But it's a really great adaptation. I remember, though, as a kid comparing when I eventually saw it, I guess. I don't know when I eventually saw this movie, but because I read the book first, obviously, and then I saw the movie, but it wasn't until middle school, though, that I started reading these books. And at a certain point, though, then I started to kind of outgrow them. I think really I stopped reading them after the one when Mia goes to prom. I distinctly remember there's just a single page with the word prom on it, enlarged letters, prom. And for me, that was the point where I was just like, okay, they wasted an entire page just for a single word. So, oh boy, the stuff that just comes back to you. But, and also coincidentally, this was not planned, but it's going to seem like it as I'm saying this, that I was going through old stuff and I happened to find my old copy of The Princess, I'm holding it in my hand right now, The Princess Diaries, and it just like brought a rush of feelings to me, and I'm getting like emotional because, oh my goodness, because it just meant so much to me. I don't know. And then I was flipping through it and I was like, oh yep, this is Mia, just kind of obsesses over things, and that's how it is of a young teenage girl. And I related to Mia because then I kept a diary too for years and years, especially when I was 13 and 14. And so, I don't know, it just means a lot to me, this series, I guess, is what I'm getting at with all of this. And it really is such a fun movie. Props to Anne Hathaway, of course, the star, as Mia Thermopolis. Again with, the whole makeover thing, which is also in another movie of hers that I discussed a while back, of course, The Devil Wears Prada. But this one's a lot of fun, and I like that there are bits of humor, because obviously this being a Disney movie, but there are some more innuendo, like a little bit of things that are kind of more, a little bit risque, since it is PG, so it's not just, it's for kids, but it's for everyone, really, so it's great. And it's just fun to revisit. And of course, obviously, Julie Andrews as Queen Clarice Rinaldi is phenomenal. I remember, though, in the book that I'm just holding in my hand now and just looking through, oh my goodness, that the grandmother character, first of all, she goes by Grandmère, and she's much more of an adversary for Mia throughout, especially in the first novel. Obviously, as the series progresses, they've developed more of an understanding with each other, as we see in the movie, of course. But in the book, she's more of just kind of this more intimidating person, whereas in the movie, obviously, yes, she is a proper queen, very graceful and elegant, and wanting to teach Mia, of course, the princess lessons, but they have this bond, and that, first and foremost, as she says, you are my granddaughter, so it's just so sweet. And the things about this movie that I have changed opinions, that certain characters, for instance, I was never a fan of Lily, but now I kind of see more of her perspective of why she's so hurt, because obviously we're following Mia's story, though, so we sympathize more with Mia, and we know what she goes through with that whole terrible thing with the beach night and all that crazy stuff that goes down. But then Lily, when she says, well, I don't want to lose my best friend and all of that, so they do have a nice friendship, though, to Lily and Mia. And also in the book, especially, the whole thing with Mia and Michael, the main romance of this first movie, because in the sequel, he's not in it. And actually, that actor, he was, they say in the movie that they just write him off saying he's on tour with his band, because that was true. And I did actually see his band perform in 2006 when I saw Kelly Clarkson in concert. And then my friend and I went to just go meet the band. Like, you could just line up and just get signatures and stuff, quick autographs. So we did that afterwards, and it was just a quick, hey, hello, how are you? And, so it was cool meeting him in person, just a really quick thing, but I do remember that. And what's his name? I should probably mention that. The actor, Robert Schwartzman. And their band was called Rooney, by the way. So in the movie, it's more so really that he is pining for her. And then, of course, by the end, when he asks her, why me? And she says, because you noticed me when I was invisible, whatever. Like, you saw me when I was invisible. But in the book, she is head over heels in love with him. The book, it's her, hence the name, the Princess Diaries. It's her diary that we're reading, her diary entries. And, goodness, I don't know why I'm getting so, nostalgic, but it's just fun. I don't know. Because, I'll be honest with you, the reason I'm just so in awe that I'm holding this in my hand right now is because I thought I gave this book away. And I have it still, and I'm just happy. It's just it's a little bit bent, a little bit worn, but it's perfect. So I'm just happy that I found this again. So, anyway. But, so in the movie, he is more so pining for her, and she has a crush on that kid Josh, a total douche, honestly. He's, not even cute, just, ugh. And then, of course, there's also the popular girl, played by Mandy Moore, Lana, it doesn't matter how to pronounce her name, she's the worst. But, so, really the whole thing with Mia, obviously, her character growth throughout the movie, how she starts, and really throughout the whole movie, she's klutzy, uncoordinated, very clumsy, and especially in the beginning, she's invisible. Someone accidentally sits on her and then just says, oh, sorry, I didn't see you. And she kind of likes being invisible in a way, though, because she doesn't we see when they do speech and debate, she's not good at public speaking. She gets so nervous that she runs out, is about to get sick. So she's just very much an uncoordinated, awkward teenage girl. And then when the bomb is dropped on her that she is in fact a princess. And then, of course, the classic, me, a princess? Shut up! I beg your pardon, shut up. It's no, it's oh gosh, it's oh yes, I understand. Julie Andrews is wonderful in this role. And really that juxtaposition of, the uncoordinated, awkward teenager, and then this sophisticated lifestyle of being a princess. And then even also the contrast with her mom, this free-spirited artist, and how she talks about that I didn't want that life, to walk behind someone, and how your father was going to be a prince and one day king. And it's sad to think about that with Queen Clarice, that she lost her husband and her son. That's very tragic. And she mentions an older son as well, though, Pierre. I did not really remember that in the book. Also, so, random things, for whatever reason, change from books to movie adaptations. In this case, Joe, too, who is a fantastic character, but in the book, as I recall, I was flipping through it, I couldn't find it, though, but I'm pretty sure his name is Raoul, and he's just a kind of a different character, whereas in this movie, he's more of a love interest with Clarice. And we just see that sweet through line throughout the movie. And then in the sequel, they end up getting married. Spoiler alert. The sequel is really good too, though. I may have to watch that at some point as well. It deviates a lot from the book canon, though, as I recall. Because I remember the mom gets married, though, to... That's more of a big deal in this book, too, with the mom dating Mia's teacher. Here it's just kind of a random thing they mention. But with the mom marrying the teacher... And then they have a son, so Mia has a new baby brother. And then in the sequel, the new love interest is Chris Pine. And then she's supposed to get married, but then she decides she doesn't want to get married because then she starts to fall for that guy. And so, that's unfortunate, the whole thing with Michael, because in the book, though, Michael and Mia do get married, as in the book series, which I never got that far, but the latest book in the series was published back in 2015, The Royal Wedding, so they do get married, so that's good, it's just cute. And, that's what's fun with this movie, because then there's a lot of comedic moments, too, obviously, with Mia being a klutz, and then when Queen Clarice is saying, okay, I never want to see those shoes ever again. You wear stockings, all of this stuff. And she only agrees because the mom kind of forces it, saying, well, Mia will decide, but for now she'll do the princess lessons, and it's just, okay, fine. And that it's funny too how they live in a refurbished firehouse, so like she has like the fire pole to go downstairs, and then of course there's the cat Fat Louie, who I distinctly remember in the book is a fat orange cat like Garfield. So in the movie, for whatever reason, it's just this black and white cat who's very cute though, but too funny, the kitty, goodness. And so the mom being, again, the free-spirited one, an artist, and then, you know, like the thing with them throwing balloons, like throwing darts to pop the balloons with the paint, and then Princess Mia saying, oh, this is much better than princess lessons. But then we see how kind of her world is changing. First, the thing with the limo, and then she has to keep it a secret though, and then of course the classic, you know, with the whole makeover, that whole scene. So going from this frizzy haired, really awkward with the glasses, and like, you know, the eyebrows, as he says, like, oh, we'll call them Frida and Cobb, like, you know. And then if Brooke Shields and Groucho Marx had a baby, your eyebrows would be the baby. And then, you know, she gets the makeover, and then Queen Clarice says, better, much better. That's a great line, because that's not saying that she didn't look bad before. That's not saying that. It's just acknowledging that now she's kind of transforming and accepting these, like, not necessarily accepting yet to be a princess, but just accepting that she's trying this out. She's trying this lifestyle. But when she looks at herself, though, she frowns and just, is this really me? Having that kind of moment. And just like small funny things, like, you know, with the guy brushing her hair, and then the brush breaks in her hair because her hair is so thick and luscious. And then afterwards, like, and the guy's like, do you wear contacts? Like, well, I do, but I don't, like, I have them, but I don't like them. And he breaks her glasses. Well, you will now. And then she says, you broke my glasses. You broke my brush. So then with the limo, and then Lily's getting annoyed, saying, wow, Mia, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you do this to yourself? And then she finally fesses up to her. That's a great scene, too. And then it's so funny, too, that when Lily's like, okay, I'm taking off this charm bracelet, and, like, I'm taking off the charm you gave me, and it's going in the dirt. And then she tells her, and she's saying, shut up. So then the news is out that she's a princess. And then later, that guy, it turns out, confessed everything for money. The, whatever his name is, Paolo, the hairstylist guy, because then she's getting all the paparazzi. So now she goes from this invisible person to now in the spotlight with all the paparazzi and everything. So her life is really changing, and she doesn't know really what she wants to do still, and it's like becoming overwhelming for her. But then we see Josh taking an interest in her when he asks her out. And we see that with Michael, too. Michael's such a sweetheart. Like, it's, you know, and then she's just saying, oh, I'm going to go out with Michael, so I'll see your bands next week then, you know. And then, obviously, everything just implodes on her at the beach house, like, when they go, and the paparazzi show up, and just, it's terrible. He kisses her, and then she smacks him in the head with, it's just fantastic. She smacks him in the head with her flip-flop, and the woman's like, hit him again! And then the terrible girls were just like, oh, Mia, we'll help you out. And then they bring the paparazzi over. It's like, poor Mia, oh my God. And then afterwards she's crying, and then the mom's saying, just let it all out. It's okay. You cry. You've been hurt. And then poor Mia just says, my foot didn't even pop. Because, you know, she just wanted her foot to pop. Her first real kiss. And then the mom's like, oh, I hope you have your first real foot popping kiss. That in the movies, that your foot just kind of pops. And they show that just scene of just the legs and then her foot with gum stuck to the shoe, just like, oh, it's not exactly working out. And there's that scene when she goes to the royal dinner, and it's just a disaster, obviously. Like, she breaks the glass accidentally, and then she eats that, whatever it is, that gelato stuff in between courses, and she's like, oh, it's cold, and it's like, oh, she didn't know it was frozen, what should we do? Well, it's like, we'll do it too, the same thing. And it's so funny, because you can see her laughing a little bit. She's like, no, like, they're copying her, like, oh, goodness. So that she doesn't fit into this world at all. But then it's so funny when she accidentally trips the guy, when she's picking up the grape that she accidentally dropped. The guy trips over her, and then that one stoic guy the whole time, just being so solemn and serious, he just starts laughing. So then the grandma, too, just laughs. It's like, oh, you know, so just a moment of just human nature. Like, you don't have to be so stuffy and proper in that sense. But Mia feeling like she doesn't fit in with that world, of course. And then we see how she let Lily down inadvertently with Lily's Shut Up and Listen talk show. And it's so funny, too, with the principal, who's played by Sandra Oh, she's just great in this role. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, Queen, this is all we have. And then she just hands the mom coffee. It's like, here. And she's just funny. And then later, too, when Mia deservedly smashes the ice cream on Lana, and then Lana's like, Mia, you freak. It's like, I'll grow out of that, but you'll never stop being a jerk. And then she says to the vice principal, you see what Mia did to me? She's like, oh, sorry, honey, I was in a very important meeting. Send it out for dry cleaning. It's great. Great line. And with the princess lessons too, it's so funny, that part with, thank you for being here today. And then Josie, okay, I gotta go. Okay, thank you for being here today, with the little wave. And the part with Mia when she's changing into the stockings and then like going up and down the hills of San Francisco. And then Joe saying that line about how I've never put on pantyhose, but they sound dangerous. Just small things like that. Also, when she accidentally breaks, like she touches the statue in the lovely palace, wherever they are. I guess it's Clarice's home in the States, but then she's going to be going back to Genovia, the country that they rule, which is a fake country. I hate to break it to you, in case you forgot, but they mention, oh, it's within this world, it's between France and Spain. So just this vague European fictional country. So then when Mia touches the statue, and then she accidentally breaks off the pinky, and then she's like, oh no, and then she just puts the pinky inside the statue's mouth, and then it just stays there. So then later on in the movie, when they're at the ball, and then it's just still there, and they're just like looking at the statue. Oh god, that's so funny. That's ridiculous. But then the whole thing with Clarice when she's disappointed in Mia and saying, well, what is there to say? You know, picture's worth 1,000 words, and you have 2 pictures. And then afterwards, Joe is rightfully saying, I think you were hard on your granddaughter. And then she says, do you think she has what it takes? And he said, oh, I never doubted her. And then she says, me too. And that scene too, when Clarice decides, Mia, let's just cancel the princess lessons and then just spend the day together. And that's just very sweet. Just a grandmother and granddaughter spending the day together. And we find out more about Mia's dearly departed father, that he was skeptical about being king, but that he knew that it was right for the people of Genovia, and that Mia's mother and father had divorced before he had passed away. And then, you know, just kind of Clarice, though, in that, like, this montage of understanding Mia's world. So in the front seat with Mia, when Mia's driving her car, her baby, as she calls it, her Mustang, and then they go to, like, that arcade, and she does the thing with the arm wrestling, and they take pictures in the photo booth. She's like, oh, these are great. Oh, but not, I just want one. Oh, not these. And then she tries a corn dog, and she's like, oh, it's delicious. Oh, let's get another one. And then the whole thing with, like, accidentally crashing into the tram, and then she just, oh, I understand. And then she just is very smart on her feet, Clarice, and just knights those two, the guy driving and the police officer. It's like, oh, of the rose, whatever, just like makes it up and then uses the brake switch thing, the emergency brake, to knight them. And it's cute, you know. And then afterwards Mia's saying, Grandma, you are the coolest queen ever. So the whole thing, when she decides, like, after that whole disastrous night, though, at the beach house, she decides that she doesn't want to be princess, that it's too much for her. And so then the grandmother says, okay, you just have to give a speech to renounce officially that you're not going to be princess. And then she's nervous about that, but then she also apologizes to her grandma, and her grandma says, as I mentioned, like, oh, first and foremost, you are my granddaughter. And then she rushes up and hugs her, and it's just so sweet. And she talks about how she doesn't want to let the people of Genovia down, and her grandmother just knows that she'll make the right decision. And because also she alludes to how, even with her own father, that it was his, he knew it was his decision and his decision alone, that he had to make the decision about whether or not he wanted to rule. So that's just so sweet. And then she gives her the diary, and then she says, the locket I gave you is the key. So it's just so sweet too. And then decides she's gonna run away, though, Mia. And then when she's packing, she's like, we're out of here, Louis. And then, like, Louis sits on the letter. It's like, what do you got there, fat Louis? Afterwards, when she puts Louis in the little cat carrier. And then that whole scene with the letter, it always gets me emotional, because it's just so sweet that he's right, like, you know, since the father had passed. But then the letter for Mia, what he had written to her, saying that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's understanding what is more important than fear. And then he mentions how, like, deciding who you are and who you can become. So it's just a very sweet, motivating message. And then she just says, the trip is off, Louis, and then she knows what she has to do. And it's just very sweet too. Also, of course, the scene when the pizza delivery guy comes, delivers the pizza to Michael. And then, it's so funny. He's like, oh, you don't? It's like, no, I don't make the pizzas, because the guy with the beard. And then he opens the pizza box and it says sorry and M&M's. And apparently the writer of this movie, the screenwriter who wrote the screenplay, Gina Wendkos, she talked about how she herself put M&Ms on pizza and she says it's delicious. I'm sure it is, but she said that it's a nice through line in terms of the romance between Michael and Mia. And so then they established it earlier in the movie when we're introduced to Michael and he's playing on the keyboard and you see the M&Ms. That she said, as them being in high school, that how you're going to express passion, this is what I read just recently, saying how you're going to express passion. So like they can't afford all these fancy things, so they just use M&Ms. So it's just a very cute, sweet thing. It's also just a fun visual with sorry spelled out in M&Ms. And that's just very sweet, so I really like that. Also, in another behind-the-scenes thing, with Mia being so clumsy and everything, and we see how she's, again, uncoordinated with all the sports and stuff. And then when she finally hits the ball, though, and it just hits Josh rightfully, that's great, too. And then she just gets a home run. That's great. Victory for Mia. But all the time she falls and stuff, the part when she falls specifically when she's walking up and down with the umbrella and talking to Lily and on the bleachers, and then she falls and she starts laughing hysterically, and then Lily's like, are you okay? That was a total accident for Anne Hathaway. Like, she genuinely fell, so she was laughing. She's like, oh, what's number 3? So that was just a genuine thing that they left in the movie. And it just worked for the character, though, too, because Mia being so clumsy. So it's just funny. Then, of course, they have the shot, though, of Joe running over to make sure she's okay. So it's just fun anyway. So then when she decides she's going to go to that Independence Day ball, and she's, of course it's downpouring, and then the car gets stuck. And then poor Mia, when she's singing that song that they sang in the beginning, Catch a Falling Star and Put It in Your Pocket. And she's like, I'm invisible and I'm wet. And then it's just so great when that rescue music, and here's Joe to the rescue. And he says, you wouldn't happen to be running away, would you? And she says, what, dressed like this? No, I'm going to a ball. So it's just so sweet. And then when Clarice is going to make the speech to the reporters, and then it turns out Mia is there. She shows up. It's like, my granddaughter has arrived, and I'm sure she has a great explanation for her wardrobe choice. And then she gives a great speech, and how she talks about first that, usually I get so nervous and I get sick and everyone backs away. And then she says, I was prepared today to abdicate my role as Princess of Genovia. But then I thought about how many times a day I say the word I, and how we all do that. And it's such an insightful speech. It's so true how we're all so hyper-focused on ourselves. It's true. It's just human nature at times when we just kind of... Because we're ourselves, so we see things from our own point of view, obviously. And with this podcast, you're just listening to me talk about my feelings, my memories, my favorite moments from whatever it is I'm discussing, So we're all guilty of doing that. So for her to just realize this and then talk about how, but if I could just focus on the 7 billion other people in the world and realize that it's not just about me, that though she's scared, that it's more so about serving the people of Genovia, and that I can have a voice. And then we see the shots of the people in the crowd, of how she looks up to her mother, proud of her, and Lily getting emotional, proud of her, and of course her grandmother, proud of her. So it's just very sweet, and again, it just shows her growth then, that it's not about her, and that she wants to do this because for the people of Genovia. So it's just very sweet. And when she says, I accept as Princess Amelia Thermopolis Grinaldi, Princess of Genovia. So it's just very sweet. And then, of course, afterwards, when she is in her gown and Clarice gives her tiara, she says, this was my first tiara, and and then she says, how'd you know I was going to come here? And she says, well, you remind me of someone, me. It's just very sweet. And then they're dancing, and then Joe steps in to dance with Clarice. And first Mia's looking around, and then she sees Michael. And it's just so sweet, the whole scene when they go out to the balcony, and then Joe says how, that was my idea, but the balcony is occupado. And then afterwards when Michael says, why me? And she says, because you saw me when I was invisible. And then she's like, and I'm still going to be the same person, I'm still going to go to school. And then he just kisses her. And she lifts her foot pops, and, turns on the lights. It's super romantic, all the lights come on. And then, of course, that fantastic song Miracles Happen by Maya starts playing. And then she's writing in her diary, as is the Princess Diaries. And then she's talking about how, she's going to go to Genovia, coronation. She's excited. She's got the jitters. It's like everyone's nervous except Fat Louie. He fits right in. He's got his little tiara. And then Joe says, look outside, there's Genovia. And God, I love that song, Miracles Happen. Such a great uplifting song, too. So it's just so sweet. And also that little part at the end when Joe just kind of waves everyone off. He takes Clarice's hand so they could have just some privacy. Very sweet. So I love that they get married then in the sequel. Adorable. Just such a great feel-good movie. It makes me emotional. It's just very sweet. Mia realizing her responsibility that, yeah, she was invisible, but now she can be someone and just really come into her own. That she's grown and matured, and this is what she was meant to do. And she's happy now. She's scared, but this is what she's going to do. Was her choice. So it's just a really great movie. It's just so much fun. Such a great book series, too, that I loved in middle school especially. So props, of course, to the author Meg Cabot. And I don't need wings to help me fly. Miracles happen once in a while when you believe. And with that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Be sure to visit storytellingsaga.com for all places to listen and where to follow on social media. And as always, feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by emailing me at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. As a quick heads up, I'm going to be shifting to every other week for releasing episodes rather than on a weekly basis. The reason being is because I'm focusing on other projects, and also regarding the podcast itself, I have a really big extra special episode that I'm planning for episode 150. So with all of that being said, last month I put out a poll asking which As Told by Ginger episode you would like to hear me discuss on the podcast. The options were Hello Stranger, and She Was Gone, Far From Home, or Butterflies Are Free. And the winner, And She Was Gone. Excellent choice. So I will be discussing that next episode. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.